Well, let's talk about this band right now we're going to be chatting with. They're called Like Thieves. They're about to hit the road to support their great new EP, Autumn's Twilight. But this man certainly is no stranger to doing interviews like this, but also getting out on the road. It's none other than the band's frontman, Clint Boge, on the line with us right now. G'day, Clint. Welcome to Heavy at Home on andrewhogue.com.
Hey, thanks, Hoagie. It's great to be here, man. What's happening?
Lots are happening. Obviously, lots are happening with you as well. But before we sort of delve into the tour date sort of side of things, let's just talk a bit about, the whole sort of, I guess it's not so new beginnings now, but obviously after leaving the Butterfly Effect and sort of regrouping and figuring out where you wanted to sort of go musically. How was that just to sort of deal with that sort of transition to get back out there now and play behind, in front of a great band called Like Thieves?
Yeah, I mean, it was surprisingly easy. I just sort of continued on. When the Butters ended, I was looking for something else to do, and I sort of mucked around with a few side projects. But, when I caught up with Odin, the guitarist, and he said, man, look, we've got these demos, check them out. So I had a good listen, and I really liked where the guys were going, and it felt like a natural progression for me from Butters to Thieves, and I was really enjoying the sound that those guys were, creating, and it was great, man. It was pretty easy, I've got to say. Thank God.
How much of their music was sort of written before you sort of came in? I mean, were you sort of there at the very start, or?
No, I mean, they've been going for a couple of years before I got there, but hadn't really, I guess, transition to the next stage and level of their writing to get it out there and produced properly. So as soon as I came in, we just made plans to get on it straight away and record, and we pretty much did that within 6 months of me joining. I worked really hard. I got to work straight away and had the songs lyric and had all the vocal melodies and stuff quite quickly because I didn't have any other projects on the go. It was just focused on Thieves, so it was pretty streamlined at that stage. But yeah, the guys had a bunch of demos that they, were working on before I got there for the couple of years, and just needed a little bit of direction. I think the experience that I had with Butters and working with, various producers and engineers and stuff really helped that. So that was a good thing, and I'm really stoked at the transition and progression and evolution of the band thus far.
And of course, your vocals, you certainly can't mistake them because it's still your sound and your feel, and it certainly sits in perfectly with the sound of Like Thieves. Now, as far as moving forward, I mean, obviously, there's just the EP's just been released, the Autumn's Twilight. Obviously, there are plans in the future for a full-length release. Is this sort of more just to sort of get the word out there, test the waters, and hit the road a bit to sort of spread the band's word?
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, we toyed with doing an album for this release, but I felt that it would probably be, more beneficial in a way to do another EP just to get that longevity and the legs out of another release. So that's what we're going to do, and we've got plans to amalgamate the two EPs for our first international release, which we're working on at the moment. We've got a bunch of people out there putting out the feelers and trying to get us some love from overseas, which would be good to see. Hopefully that come to fruition. Fingers crossed for that. So that will be our first album, essentially, for overseas. Although our first proper album of new tracks won't be out. We've got about 6 or 7 in the pipe for that one, which we're pretty excited about. It's sort of, some of the songs have taken a slightly different direction in that the melodic structures and values are slightly different, probably lending themselves to be a little more accessible. But then on the other hand too, the heavier stuff is getting a little bit heavy and a bit more brutal, which is great because I think that's a great blend. Make your heavy stuff really heavy and make your clean and nice stuff really clean and nice.
Of course. Now let's talk a bit about, obviously it's evident you've been around the block, what's sort of out there and how the biz works and all sort of behind the scenes, the good and bad stuff as well. What's your take on the sort of direction of the music biz these days, especially for the billions of up-and-coming bands that all want a slice of the crumbs, so to speak, as opposed to that big sort of elusive pie that everyone still thinks is out there? I mean, how do you approach, again, being in this band now after all the stuff you've experienced previously with the Butterfly Effect?
Yeah, man, that's a really good question. You know what? I still think that there's, plenty of the pie out there for the right band, and I guess I'm just stoked to be making good music that I think is very good and good art. In that sense, for me, man, it's always an uphill struggle, and I think that's the thing that keeps you going. It's kind of like, you hear about these people that get everything they ever wanted and they just mope around because, there's no fight left in it. So yeah, man, I'm still excited to be in it. I'm glad that I've found a new home and that somehow by the good graces of the rock gods, I'm still relevant to a few people out there, which is nice. So, yeah, man, I just say to all the bands out there, just keep pushing, just keep writing and keep making that great art, because that's what makes, pardon the pun, the musical world go round. So, yeah, but you know what, Hoagie, I reckon all of that, that sort of pie in the sky stuff is all a crock. Anyway, and it's none of the musos that I know have got flash houses and big cars and, all that sort of bizarre. So, yeah, and I'm just happy to be in it still.
Well, let's get into a track now from the latest EP, The Autumn's Twilight, and we'll come back and we'll talk a bit about those tour dates you got coming up this week, kicking off, of course, August. We are chatting with Clint Boge, frontman for Like Thieves. This is Heavy at Home on andrewhogue.com. Ghost in the Machine. They certainly can be as well, I'll tell you that much behind the scenes. Like Thieves is the band, and we are chatting with Clint Boge, the frontman for the group, as we just featured some tracks from their latest EP, The Autumn's Twilight, just released too, and right in perfect time for their kick-off Australian tour happening this week. The first show is this Friday at the Republic Bar in Hobart, then on Saturday at the Enigma Bar in Adelaide, and then the following week in Brisbane. There's Newcastle, Sydney, Geelong, and Melbourne. We'll certainly keep you posted. So, Clint, just, I guess, fill us in on what you've been listening to in the last couple of months as far as sort of heavy music. Maybe there's a few bands out there that we may need to possibly add to this wonderful 24/7 rock metal radio station that is andrewhogue.com.
Oh, man, I don't think I could add anything to your repertoire, Hoagies, but I have been listening to some Tesseract, some Sky Harbour, some Catatonia. I took a trip down memory lane, listened to some Cog the other night. That was pretty cool.
Miss that band.
Yeah, man, miss those guys heaps. What else have I been listening to? Well, after the Dead Letter Circus tour, man, we listened to those every night on the tour, so that was great to reminisce with those guys, and and the release of their new album, which was really cool. So yeah, man, well, I've been feasting on some good stuff and some Old Lamb of God as well, which is I forgot how brutal those guys are, man. So it's been good. And also, what did I play the other day? Some Parkway, Deep Blue. That was killer. So yeah, man, I've been feasting on heavy music. It's been great.
And going by your little list there, obviously a majority of it was Australian music, and that's what we do proudly here at the station as well. Of course, we've got this program every Monday night from 8 p.m, but we also do support Australian heavy music heavily on the station itself because, even now there's no need to say that, we're just as good as anybody else. I think that can be completely ditched now because Australian music is world-class music. It's just a matter of some of the lazy punters in this country basically getting off their backsides and supporting it. That's where I think the problem can lie. I know we can open up a whole can of worms here and start a different debate, but being out there on the road, being a hard-working band as well yourselves, what are you seeing as far as audience reactions? Are you seeing that the scene is saturated? Is it healthy? How do you see it from your standpoint as a hard-working muso?
Man, that's a good question. You know what? I kind of find a complacency generally from people. Like once people used to go and see bands just off a whim, or because their friend said, hey man, we're going to see X band at X venue. They go, yeah, bugger, it's only $10, $15, whatever, I'll come see it. I'm finding less of that these days. I think, the live music scene isn't sort of being nurtured by venues and venue operators like it used to. Bands aren't being looked after in terms of, when you're young and sort of starting out. There's heaps of things going on, all at the one time, but you can still get heaps of access to people that have been around the block. So I just think that it comes down to, in one facet of the whole, the vibe that's going on out there, it's just people aren't going to discover new bands like they were, years ago. So I'm finding that's a little bit of a problem.
Do you find that it's just because there's too many options and people don't know where to go? Because, okay, there's about 20 different streaming sites now bombarding you with 50 billion songs to choose from. It's almost like going into the biggest supermarket in the world and having no one tell you where you could find some jam without even having signs. I think that as much as these massive things are great for people to discover music, it seems to be there's no guide.
Yeah, man, that's a good point also. I find, to a large degree, it's like... unfortunately, for the bubblegum masses, it's like they need to be force-fed. I mean, the people that are listening to this station and the people out there that are actively, trying to discover new bands, we're not worried about those people because they're the ones, we love and we try to support back as much as we can, as we do. It's bringing in that new audience that I'm finding is the difficult thing. And not only that, it's like a population at various levels and demographics, they're aging and, so there's a whole world of difference out there these days. And as we were talking about before, it's the information overload. Like you said, man, that's spot on.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, everywhere we look, we're being bombarded with either advertising or being new things to check out, and because everyone's vying for each other's attention, and sometimes there is just not enough brain space, and that's not to mention lack of intellect. Just the brain can't process everything that's happening, so our minds delete a lot of things without even realizing it because... it is information age overload. So, again, another discussion for another time. But we can get you to choose. What track do you want to hear, actually, from the latest EP, Autumn Twilight, Clint?
Man, I really dig the first track, Wake from Eternal Sleep. It came together really, organically when Odin played me the riff for the first time. I was like, wow, man, that was amazing. Great writing by Odin. I take my hat off to that guy every time. The stuff he comes up with is amazing, and it's always backed up by some killer drums by Dan and some amazing technical work by Clint Boge on bass, who's always, pushing the limits. And, the guys I just really love these guys. They're a good bunch of guys, great musos, so I'm just glad they gave me a great platform to work off. So, Wake from Eternal Sleep.
All right, let's get into it now. Is Odin a massive Manowar fan with a name like that, I presume?
Well, his parents are Swedish, so
typical.
Yeah, that's it, man. So he used to have the long hair and the big goatee, and he looked like he could have been in Meshuggah, like straight out of it, dude. So, and he plays an 8-string as well. He could definitely. We could tour with those guys, and Odin could fill in, no problem.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for your time, Clint. We'll definitely be checking in with you in the coming weeks to check out how things are going on the tour, and make sure you get out and support great Australian heavy music bands called Like Thieves. And thank you very much for your time, Clint.
Thanks, Hogan.
No worries. Let's hear the song now called Wake from Eternal Sleep. This is Like Thieves.